everyone. Welcome back to Title IX Insider. Today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Ruth Darlene. And Ruth, I would love for you to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your organization and what you all focus on and do. And then we're going to be jumping right in to have some deep conversation on the work done in and around Title IX and sexual violence.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Sandy, it's a pleasure to be here. Quite an honor to be invited. My name's Ruth Darlene, and I run a domestic violence nonprofit that's called Women of Silicon Valley Survivor Voices, or WomenSV for short. And the focus of our program is on coercive control education. And I know we're going to talk about that in detail later, so I'll save the definition for a bit. But the focus is on more subtle forms of abuse and on education and prevention work, because when you're in an abusive relationship, it's sometimes a day late and a dollar short in terms of figuring out what to do about it. And if you can know what the warning signs of controlling behavior look like up front, it can be much easier to deal with it. So our website is womensv.org. And we have a 90-minute online course on coercive control that is all about helping survivors and also providers to walk survivors through the process of understanding and documenting subtle forms of abuse and turning that into a 2 to 3 page summary, which they can then adapt according to their audience and goals. If they're talking to a therapist, they'll be structuring it in one way. If they're talking to a police officer, perhaps in another, or if they're just wanting to make sense of it for themselves, it'll be a different way. So it's a very flexible document that they'll end up with and include all different types of abuse. So that's the executive summary workshop, we call it, 90-minute self-paced. And then I do a lot of trainings for providers, for physicians, for therapists, because providers across the board get little to no training on coercive control. I've been doing this work for 15 years now. I served over 1,500 survivors of coercive control, these subtle forms of abuse. Not always so subtle, but they include subtle forms of abuse. And so the women I worked with were professionals. Some of them had given up their career to raise their families, but the partners that they were involved with were doctors, lawyers, engineers, CEOs, public figures, some celebrities, some you'd know the names of, and you'd never guess they had this dark side behind closed doors. So that was the purpose of creating this nonprofit, to fill a gap in services, a gap in awareness, and a gap in support for survivors in middle to upper income areas generally that kind of fall through the cracks when it comes to getting any kind of services, because on paper it can look like they're doing just fine. Sometimes they don't have access to that household income. They're experiencing financial abuse. But even if they are financially self-sufficient, that won't stop a bullet or a knife. So uh, people across all spectrums of society, all income levels, all genders, all races, all religions, and I worked with them all, deserve to be protected from coercive control, and providers deserve to be educated about it so they can do a better job serving their survivors and not just be looking for more obvious forms of abuse.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for explaining that and providing such a wonderful introduction to yourself and your organization. For everyone out there, please remember to like and subscribe to us, and please give us any comments or questions that you may have. Of course, if you want to be connected to Ruth, just write in a comment and we will directly connect you over to Ruth, especially for those looking to better understand coercive control, domestic violence, and how that ties into sexual violence altogether. So Ruth, since you have been bringing up coercive control, would you like to maybe start us off by defining what coercive control is? And I will just add that under the Title IX space, many times individuals are very confused about what coercion actually means. And they tend to get it confused, especially when we begin to discuss consent. Um, so I would love to hear what coercive control is defined as, especially when we discuss domestic violence and dating violence.
And I'd love to tell you. Let me just qualify one thing before I dive into that. And that is, after spending 13 years working with survivors directly, providing direct client services, and that was running support groups, meeting individually with them to do education and safety planning, sometimes going to court with them. I don't work directly with survivors anymore. My full-time focus is on educating providers to get that leverage because they interact with so many different survivors. So if they can be better educated, then they can better protect the survivors coming to them for help. But for survivors who reach out to me, I'd be happy to connect them with our online materials, our website, and all kinds of resources and materials that they can use to understand what they're facing and then to do something about it to protect themselves and their children if they have children. Uh, and so now on to talking about what coercive control is. This, I could spend several hours. We could have a slumber party just talking about this all night because it's a topic that is just beginning to be discussed now in the United States. It's been on the map in different parts of the world, including Canada and the United Kingdom, for long before it was in legislation in any of the states here in the United States. So I'm really, really grateful that they're talking about it now. You can see the definition of domestic violence on the Department of Justice website includes coercive control. And it does talk about the abuse of power in order to control an intimate partner, but it uses the term coercive control and it includes things like emotional, financial, technological abuse, legal abuse. So but it doesn't go into real deep detail about what coercive control is and what it looks like. And that's kind of a strange choice of words. What does coercive control look like? Because sometimes it's invisible and it's very hard to tell what it looks like. Coercive control is a pattern of threatening, isolating, controlling behavior. I was kind of stumbling over the order to talk about that in because it often begins with controlling and controlling in the sense of charm. The first step is to look as if you are absolutely on board with somebody that you have. If you're a covert abuser, somebody that is secretly into control and domination and subjugation, you're going to be on your best behavior when you first meet a new target. And that's going to include things like love bombing and grooming behavior. And I use grooming very consciously because it's much the same as what pedophiles do with children. It's come here, little boy or little girl, I've got candy. So showering, the adult version is showering a new target with gifts and attention and praise and saying things like, oh, you're so much more intelligent or beautiful or sane than my crazy ex-wife. You'll never believe what she did to me, presenting himself as the victim. So that the control begins with lifting her up, putting her on a pedestal, sweeping her off her feet. That's a form of control that looks positive. Or texting her multiple times a day to check in with her. Oh, I'm thinking about you. I had such a lovely time with you last night. You're so awesome. You're so brilliant. I feel like I've connected with you in a way I've never connected with anyone else in my whole life. I find like I think I found the perfect woman for me. And so she is getting love bombed and gaslit in the beginning. She won't know if all those words of praise and attention are authentic or if they're part of that controlling manipulative pattern designed to lure her in. It's going to take time for her to discern the difference between true charm and performative charm. So back to the definition of coercive control, a pattern of threatening, isolating, controlling behavior, beginning with control, but it's designed to entrap an intimate partner in their personal life and cause her to live in fear. So if we begin with the charm, we begin with the grooming, we begin with lifting her up on a pedestal. Who doesn't want to be on a pedestal, admired and told how beautiful and lovely and smart and intelligent she is? It can turn a girl's head. But then what can happen after that is this kind of forced teaming. Oh, I think we would make beautiful children, don't you? I just can't wait to see what happens as our relationship as we get closer and closer. And baby, I can't wait to get closer to you. And if he's handsome and popular and intelligent and charming, all has all the trappings of success, those things can turn a girl's head too. And what can make her vulnerable, I realize I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's all part of this picture. What can make her more vulnerable if is she a new student? Is she just a freshman in her college years or graduating high school and about to launch into this new chapter in her life? Wherever she is in a vulnerable moment of her life and whatever vulnerability she may be bringing with her and whatever strength she has, if she's smart and beautiful and ambitious, all of those things make her a target. And that's what a lot of people don't realize in the Title IX world, in the legal world, in the therapy world. It's not your childhood wounds that make you a target for domestic abuse or coercive control. It's everything that's good about you as well as everything that's vulnerable about you. So it's learning to identify early warning signs and then um, getting out quickly before you get in too deep.
Ruth, you just hit something that is so critical and important that I talk about, have never discussed it in a podcast yet, which is the fact that, and it's really sad. I'm smiling. I should not be smiling. I'm smiling only because you probably are the first person I've heard say this outside of myself, um, where we talk about the charm of the female, the intelligence of the female, the vulnerability of the female, and I would even add the kindness of the female makes them a target. Many times I've seen this in my life, my youth, as a child growing up, surrounded by a lot of, I would call very kind-hearted, not strong women, but very kind. Those I would say are the ultimate target many times because they are the most vulnerable. They believe and they look at the world with these rose-colored glasses and they're happy and they're kind and they're sensitive. And unfortunately, many times the individuals that are tough, charismatic, aggressive, successful look at these individuals like, wow, they're a bright star. And then they squash that star. They squash that star um, and control that star. And it's something that I think is very difficult for people to understand because in the Title IX space, in the legal space, the therapy space, spaces that I have worked in very closely with colleagues, professionals, and with victims, um, I think it's always important to focus on the masculine aggressor as the perpetrator, but we tend to forget about who these people are that are being targeted. And so that's why I like what you just said, because I think we forget about the importance of looking at the fact that they are so good that that's why they are a target.
Yes, that was so well said, Sandy. That it's a perfect complement in a way. Not complement like COMPLEMENT, complementary partnership where she gives, he takes. That's his idea of a give and take relationship. And the more capable she is of self-reflection, holding herself accountable, empathy, kindness, compassion, all the good things about her, the longer, and perseverance and problem solving and nurturing and healing, all those things that make her that lovely soul that you're talking about, the more of those qualities she has, the longer she's liable to stay in this kind of relationship, thinking that there's something that she can do to fix this, to heal him, to solve the problem of their of the dysfunction in their relationship. And then if you add to that the culture that she comes from, the women that I work with came from all over the world. There were many different races, many different religions, many different cultural backgrounds. But for many in the Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, and I'll say even I'm Irish, we put men on a pedestal. But in certain cultures in the world, it's really taboo to talk about divorce. It's taboo to talk about domestic violence. And if there is a problem in the relationship, the burden falls on the woman to fix it. I believe coercive controllers have some kind of soul wound and they've gone the other direction and turned to some very dark forces to fill that gap. Money, power, sex, fame, all of that, which is how they identify themselves. And then women become tools, objects, resources, possessions. And back to my definition of domestic violence, let me add that it's a lethality risk with or without a prior history of physical or sexual violence. And why is that? Because it turns a woman into a possession, an object, a resource, sometimes a sex object. And what's the ultimate right of property possession? Disposal, the right to dispose of it. If it's no longer serving the same purpose, if it's causing a problem, if you find a replacement. So I also serve on the domestic violence death review team, and I know what the ultimate act of coercive control looks like. And it's perpetrated by men who view women not as beloved, cherished partners, but as servants, as slaves, as objects, resources, assets, possessions.
Right. And what you're discussing now is murder. You're
Yes,
discussing the end of the life of a female, and
yes.
or male, right? Depending on
Yeah,
who
mostly women,
is,
though. We
mostly
just to
women. Absolutely
underline,
true.
it's by far the vast majority of murders and intimate partner relationships happen to women by men.
Yep, I agree. I agree. And it's something that I've talked about pretty often. I do get a lot of hate messages when I start talking about that. But it is true. It is mainly women. Um, but although it does happen to some men as well. Um, I will add, in the Title IX space, when we think about understanding domestic violence, understanding dating violence, I think you just, did an excellent job of describing what that really does look like when we talk about coercive control with that manipulation, that exploitation of the individual. And I think many times administrators, Title IX coordinators, those that are meant to step in and help out, sometimes they don't truly understand what they're looking for. They
Oh,
don't understand these types of characteristics that you would see in these types of relationships that do fall under Title IX and the protections and the rights of individuals that they have under Title IX. And so I think that was an excellent description, and hopefully that does help individuals out there watching this now or listening to this now better understand coercive control. I
can
do
I say
want
one more
to,
thing, Sandy, before
yeah,
we move on
yes,
to
of course.
thank you for that. Lovely, summary and description and taking it a step further. When you mentioned the hate mail, um, I dare say it's being driven by this tactic called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. Sort of basically accusing somebody else of what they're actually guilty of, and often the people that object the most to shining a light on male abuse are the male abusers that are doing that. And I do want to say there's plenty of good men out there, but what we want to talk about here and going forward is how to tell the difference between a good man and one to run from or back away slowly from. And then I wanted to just uh, break down a little bit the difference between domestic violence and coercive control, because in the Title IX space and in the world in general, we still are tending to look at intimate partner violence as a series of separate, discrete, 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 not the other word, incidents. It's he hit her. Uh, he gave her a black eye. He pointed a gun at her. He threatened to kill her. All right, let's act on that. Can we take a picture of that? Can we submit it as Exhibit A to court? Okay, maybe we can get a restraining order, send him to a batterer's intervention program. I've got something to say about that later. So we often see domestic violence as a series of isolated incidents treated in silos, one at a time, addressed and punished, holding the person responsible for one at a time. And what gets lost along the way, thank you, Battered Women's Movement, for putting domestic violence on the table. However, one of the unintended consequences was this sheer sole focus on bruises, broken bones, death threats, weapons. And what got swept under the table and became invisible was the unifying thread that unites those blips on the screen of domestic violence, and in some cases, many cases where there may be no blips at all, but it's that thread of isolating, threatening, controlling behavior. That if she doesn't toe the line, something terrible is going to happen. What's going to happen? Well, he's going to sabotage her work. He's going to cut her off the joint bank account. He's going to file for divorce, a restraining order, set her up to get arrested, take the kids away, smear her reputation so that she's not even able to get a job and loses all her friends, turn even the parents of their kids' friends against her. So there's an unlimited number of ways he can attack her and destroy her without leaving any fingerprints behind. And that is what gets lost in the Title IX space, in the legal space, in the world in general, and often amongst police and therapists and other providers as well, because everybody, as a rule, still is looking for bruises, broken bones, weapons, and they're missing. It's like that old, what is it, that old story of the guy that was looking for his keys late one night after going to a bar. He lost his keys and he's looking at a street light, on the next block, and a police officer comes to try to help him and says, "Can I help you, sir?" And he says, I dropped my keys." He said, "Well, where did you last find them?" He says, "Well, back at the bar." And he said, "Well, why are you looking at them for them here?" "Well, the light's better here." So how crazy is that, that we are just focused on physical evidence, physical acts, because it's easier to see, easier to get evidence of, easier for the survivor to identify as abuse, and easier to get some kind of consequences or protection around. So that backfires in so many ways. And one of them is the impact it has on survivors themselves, where she may start to be gaslit by the very professions that are trying to help her, inadvertently gaslit, where she thinks, well, at least he's not beating me. At least I don't have a black eye. At least, I live in a nice house, or my kids go to a nice school. And what gets missed along the way is she's living like a prisoner. She's in a cage. Yeah, it's a gilded cage, but and the bars are invisible. But she's feeling trapped, restricted. She has to edit what she says before she says it. She could have an innocent conversation start at the breakfast table where she and her husband are getting along just fine, and then she happens to mention that the dishwasher broke, and all of a sudden he flies into a rage, or he just shrugs, and next morning she comes out to the breakfast table and the dishwasher's gone, and he says, "If you can't fix it, you can't own it." So for the next, 20, 30 years, she's doing the dishes by herself. Or he's forcing her he gives her a 10-page document on how to do the laundry properly, or a 5-page document on how to walk the dog, or how to iron, or how to vacuum, how to prepare meals. And what serves him tonight may be thrown in the garbage tomorrow, or he may force her to eat it. He may throw it on the floor and force her to eat it, and there'll be terrible things done to her if she doesn't. So things that can happen in the bedroom that never get reported. And if she comes from another culture, she definitely won't report it because of that shame that's attached to anything that happens in their private life, let alone the bedroom. So you can see all the consequences that she's up against. She's surrounded by these invisible bars. She reaches out for help and they ask her, "Well, did he hit you? Did he threaten to kill you? Well, come back when he actually does something." And she goes away thinking, "I guess I'm alone. I guess there's nothing I can do about it. I guess this is my life. Why do I feel like maybe it's not worth going on?" And you can see how some women end up giving up all hope. Sometimes ending their own lives is the only escape.
Thank you for that, Ruth. I think I'd like to switch over to talking about prevention education and some of the work that you and your organization do for domestic violence and for all of the survivors out there. So that way, individuals that are watching this from the Title IX space can also think of things that they can be doing. What can they borrow from your organization? What can they learn from your organization? I know that you mentioned you have a 90-minute training. I'm not sure if that's available for administrators, but would
Yes, it
love to hear a
is.
little bit. I would love to hear a little bit more about the prevention education you all are doing.
Well, thank you so much. And let me not forget to mention, and this is really an important resource, is nomore.org. You may already be aware of it, but they also have on their website a program called Lighthouse that really helps. young people recognize what kind of, well, people of all ages really, but especially college students recognize what kind of relationship they're in and what to do about it. But No More is an organization that's focused on prevention and education work. It's a global organization. So I'm focused on education and prevention work, and I'm in this tiny, I feel this, tiny little space, but they're all over the world. They're global. So and they have lots and lots of resources, and they do zero in on specific communities as well. So, would highly recommend in terms of prevention and education, checking out nomore.org. And then for womensv.org, yes, the 90-minute course is very helpful for survivors and providers. And it's broken down into modules and in very small, short segments that are, and it's trauma informed, and there's visuals, there's illustrations, and it's easy to follow, and it's self-paced. And the idea is to help young women who are just getting into the dating scene, and women who've been in an abusive relationship, wanting not to repeat that or find another version of it. So it's designed to help them wherever they are, whatever phase they're in. Um, and In going through this course, they'll end up, as I said before, with a 2 to 3 page summary of what their experiences are. But in the course itself, there'll be a document that I created called the Incident and Allegation Log, and it's designed to be like a data dump where they in highlight headline form as you go through the different documents that help a survivor recall what's happened and understand that yes, that too is abuse. When he comes into the room in the middle of the night, wakes you up and wants to have sex or talk because he's had a hard day and you've got to get up at 6 in the morning, that's abuse, that's sleep deprivation, and so that goes in there. When he's trying to shrink your horizons so that your world totally revolves around fulfilling his needs, that's monopolization of perception, and that should go in there. What are some examples of that? And then there's other documents that we go through as well. The Danger Assessment by Jackie Campbell, which is a very popular tool that's used by police, some form or other of it, but also the My Plan version from the One Love Foundation is used for college students. It's based on the danger assessment. It's very good for getting at more obvious forms of abuse, more obvious forms of what we think of as domestic violence. Did he threaten to kill you? Has the abuse increased over the last year in severity or frequency? Has he ever put his hands on your throat? Like, these are things that you can identify often and you or get a witness for or take photos of. For when I did that danger assessment with, I told you I worked with over 1,500 survivors. I complemented it with another tool called the Webb scale, the Women's Experience of Battering, and I talk about this in the course as well. And the Webb scale is it's about getting at more subtle forms of abuse, getting at coercive control. I was at a conference, this was years ago, with our beloved Evan Stark. He's no longer with us, but he is the patriarch of the coercive control movement that gave us the book, Coercive Control, subtitle How Men Entrap Women in Personal Life. And I ran by him the Webb scale and asked him what he thought of it. And he said he thought it was better at getting at coercive control than the danger assessment. And I wholeheartedly agree. And that's enough for me to have gotten his stamp of approval. So with all my survivors, I would use the danger assessment and the Webb scale because sometimes survivors would score fairly low on the danger assessment. There wasn't that obvious threat and harm being done to them. And then the risk was coming away with underestimating the level of danger they were in. And Jackie Campbell herself said that the women that ended up getting murdered by their partners, this is what she based her study on and pulled those 20 questions out of studying all those cases of women that ended up getting killed. Like over 50% of them had underestimated the level of danger they were in. So if you're not experiencing physical or sexual violence, or it's very infrequent, that doesn't mean the lethality risk goes away. And that's why the Webb scale starts from the other direction. The danger assessment goes from the outside in. What did he see? What did he do? What did you see? What did you feel? Sorry, not what did you feel? What did you hear? What did you see? So obvious forms with the danger assessment. With the Webb scale, we're going from the inside out. How did you feel? Did you feel trapped, isolated, threatened, or controlled? Well, can you think of a time? When was the worst time you felt that way? Afraid, for example. Oh, wow, we were coming home from a party, and I had talked to some guy for too long, and I noticed that, the speed limit was 45. He was going 80. I asked him to slow down. Now he's going 90. I screamed, stop. He stopped on the highway. So it was late at night and there were no cars behind, but it was terrifying just the same. That's one trial learning. And the Webb scale is not yes, no, up, down, on, off. It is scale it. One, meaning I absolutely disagree, to six, I absolutely agree. And she gave that one a six. And so you're going through these statements like he has a look that goes right through me and scares me, terrifies me. Now, you're not going to call the police on that one and say, help, my husband just gave me the evil eye. But if you look at cases like the uh, the young man that shot up the movie theater in Aurora, in Colorado,
Mm.
or Ted Bundy, you will see what happens to their eyes. And the psychological explanation is they will describe it in, adrenaline or cortisol or the rush of excitement when they're about to do something horrible or they're very angry. So you're not going to call the police on that one either, but you're starting to create a picture. And I think women, I know I certainly do. I'm not so much linear as I am. Like for me, life is like a jigsaw puzzle. Put in a piece here, a piece there, and it looks pretty scattered and chaotic, just the way I'm answering your questions. But at the end, hopefully it'll all come together and you'll see that I've, woven this rug that is this portrait of what an abuser looks like and what they do to a survivor. And it's just like, using the stars to navigate at night. You don't want to look at isolated incidents. Oh, he was mean to a server. He cut this person off in traffic. He keeps checking up on me, or I caught him reading my cell phone. What do you do with that? Um, but you want to connect the dots over time and see what portrait emerges. Uh, if you can create that or discern that pattern and turn it into that constellation of covert abuser, just like we'd see Scorpio or Orion, constellation, then it's hard to unsee that afterwards. You've got his number. You know who he is. And once you know who he is, if you can identify it, and we can talk about more characteristics in a while, but once you can identify who and what he is, it's not about taking him to couples counseling or individual therapy or you trying harder to please them or make things work out. Now it's about your safety, the risk to you and your children if you have them. And the younger they are, the more impacted they're going to be by his behavior. So then it's about, safety planning and backing away slowly and getting trauma-informed people to help you. With the talks that I do for students, I focus on prevention. And nowhere is education more important than in the area of covert abuse, coercive control, uh, early identifying early warning signs that can be easy to miss. And it begins internally, just like the Webb scale starts with how are you feeling? Identifying coercive control begins internally. How are you feeling in this relationship? Are you feeling like you're being monitored? Are you feeling like everything you say is being criticized or judged or commented on or criticized or mocked in some way? Is that making you edit what you say before you say it? So, a place to start is by identifying your core values. What makes you you and what is most important to you? If you're a spiritual person and you've just met somebody who's cute and in law school or already and making $1 million doing one thing or another, if he's checking all the boxes that would make mom go woo, that's a catch. Well, you want to dig beneath the surface and see, do his core values match yours? If you're spiritual, is he? If that's one of the things that would be a deal breaker or one of the things that's essential. So you want to look for essential values. First, what are you all about? What is most important in your life? And I go through a whole list of them, and I'm actually creating a course on prevention, just like the course on the executive summary workshop. And then, what are your core values? What are core values you're looking for in a friend, even, or a supervisor or a partner? Because coercive control can leak out into other areas of your life. And what are essential qualities to have in a friend or a partner? What are negotiables? Things that would be nice to have, but you can live without them. Like maybe you're looking for somebody with a sense of humor and he's a little bit dry or more serious. Maybe you can live with that. Or if you're an outdoor person, they're indoor. Well, is that you're wanting to look at lifestyle too? Look at your lifestyle and see how much of a impact that would have. If you're all about hiking and he's all about watching Netflix. So it's like essentials and it's the negotiables and then it's the deal breakers. If you are really value your own body and the way it's treated, are you catching and watching really aggressive porn? Is that a deal breaker for you? So these are the things to identify because women, I'll tell you, young women are not being taught these. I know these values, these lessons. I know from teaching classes to high school students and college students. They're learning, what the major export from Bolivia is, or how to get straight A's, but how to get into, law school or medical school. But are they learning what to look for in a partner? No, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Have him earn your trust little by little. You share a little, he shares a little. Watch out for alignment faking. What I call alignment faking was borrowed from AI and technology, where even they're finding programmers are getting shocked, surprised, and startled by what artificial intelligence is coming up with now. And it can act like it's agreeing with what the user is saying and holding similar values just so it won't get deleted later on. And that's an unexpected finding. And that's similar to the alignment faking that you'll see when you're first going out with somebody who is a covert abuser, who pretends to be just as spiritual as you are, pretends to want to have kids just like you do one day. And then you get married and oops, well, I've decided I want to pursue my career. Good luck with you can freeze your eggs or maybe let's not bother having kids at all. It's that bait and switch. So watch out for that. So back to the prevention is you want to be really vigilant in the beginning, keeping a journal, bullet point form, the good times and the troubling times. Don't let them pass you by, because if you tend to give people the benefit of the doubt and have an open heart and want to find true love, and maybe the clock is ticking and you want to have kids, it may make you compromise some of your values. And you don't want to ever do that because it's pay me now or pay me later. Break your heart now or break your heart later. And these guys with domestic violence can break bones. These guys can break hearts. They can break minds. They can break spirits. And over time, because we know of the neuroplasticity of the brain, those can heal. But spirits take a lot longer to heal than bruises or broken bones.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Ruth. I think you just give me so much to think about, especially when I'm thinking about parents also, within the Title IX space, parents of kids that
Oh,
also don't understand the nuances of the Title IX protections and misunderstand what they might be seeing with their son or daughter dating somebody, right? I don't know if you have any tidbits of information for parents out there. I know our time is running out, but maybe that could be one of
so shorten
maybe
it, condense it, Ruth. I know.
maybe
I hear you. It's
maybe
hard.
that can be one of our last questions to you is what advice do you have for parents out there that are looking at their son or daughter wondering, are they in some sort of trouble? Are they in an unhealthy relationship? What can I do to help better support them? What can I say?
Yeah, thank you. That's such an important question, Sandy. That education begins with when they're little girls and little boys reading fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, the Pied Piper. If you've read any of those, Pied Piper, how's that for warning little kids about pedophiles? Oh, follow me, little kids. I've got candy and a flute. Or that even, adult females, women can have ulterior motives, like the witch and Hansel and Gretel. Or Little Red Riding Hood, beware of the wolf in sheep's clothing, or the wolf in the woods who dresses up like grandma. Like that tale was written by Charles Perrault to warn little girls about getting involved with men who want to use and abuse them. So parents, what they can be doing is opening the conversation very early on about respect and how you treat a woman, and installing these core values in little girls that they are worthy of love and protection and to be treated like the cherished little children of God that they are, if they're spiritual at all, but just cherished and loved and respected and protected and cared for. And keeping those lines of communication open, that you can tell me anything. Let's talk about it. Being careful not to judge or doubt when somebody's coming to you. For for kids that end up getting sexually abused, either like by a family member or someone close to the family, the studies have shown that what hurts them more is more than the act itself is not being believed by the adults that they're reaching out to for support and protection. Believe your children, believe them when they come to you. Kids already are more likely to confide in a peer than they are with an adult. So make friends with your kids' friends too. Have your place be the place they get to come to hang out for, good times, kicks and giggles. Oh, mom's so fun, or dad's so fun. Hopefully, you've got a lovely husband that's supportive. Sometimes parents aren't aware, and sometimes they participate in the abuse. I hate to say, but any abuse crosses all areas of society, and parents can be abusive towards children too. And sometimes it's academic abuse, where a child's worth is equated with their GPA, and then later on they enter the workplace and their worth is equated with their net worth. So can parents teach children that they are inherently worthy of love? They are inherently worthy of the parents' love and to be treated well. And can they start learning? Parents can go on my website and take this course, the Executive Summary Workshop, and learn how to recognize early warning signs of controlling behavior and the impact on their kids. Is she getting quieter than she used to be? Is she spending more and more time away from home? Is she out past curfew? Are her grades dropping? Are you seeing a change in her personality, where she used to be really outgoing and fun and creative and spontaneous, and suddenly you feel like she's like closing down and looking a little nervous? And is her boyfriend texting her like 24 hours a day? Does he always want to be with her? And even if they're going out on a camping trip or something, he's with her, like attached to her every moment. So that's a form of isolation that happens, not just with him isolating her privately and trying to cut off her relationships with her friends and family members, but even when they're out with other people, he's got to have her attention the whole time. So how is she feeling? Is she feeling anxious, depressed, developing an eating disorder? Or are there other signs that there's something going on that she's not yet ready to talk about? Can you say, I'm concerned about you, honey. I see some changes in you. I would just, I love you. I want you to be safe. And what do you think about Alex? I know he's smart and popular, and he's I don't know, he's head of the debate society or whatever, and he's going to law school. And he's got all these great things, and you might be worried that if he breaks up with you or you break up with him, he's going to smear your reputation all across the campus. Can we talk about any fears you might have? Because I want you to be safe. I want you to be treated well. What can we do to build up your village so that if you are uncomfortable with him, or if you don't feel safe, it's not bruises or broken bones always. It can be just feeling that that he doesn't know what consent means. Consent starts outside the bedroom. Hey, let's go to this show. Well, I don't really like horror movies. I want to go, and mocks her if she doesn't. So
Mhm.
consent begins outside the bedroom, honoring her wishes, sharing, negotiating, settling, compromising, putting the relationship above his own selfish needs, and then it moves into the bedroom. Consent is enthusiastic and ongoing, inside and outside the bedroom.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ruth. I think there's just so much that you and I can talk about, to be quite honest. Um,
Oh yes, we didn't even touch on strangulation, which is sweeping college campuses. Once he puts his hands on your throat, he's signaling that he is a killer, and it's not, rough sex or breath play. It's attempted murder. And just go on Alliance for Hope, the Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention, to learn more about that, please. I'd just like to let everybody know that if you're in an abusive relationship, it's not the end of the world, and there is healing after abuse. And you deserve to feel free and safe and at peace in your personal life, just as you should feel all those things in your public life. It's our fundamental human right to live in peace and safety and freedom in your home. So please reach out, get the help you need, and know that there are good men out there and there is life after abuse, and you can heal. Neuroplasticity of the brain. So take care and be safe and be loved.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I'm so happy and delighted that you joined me today. And I already know that I want to invite you back so that we can have
Oh,
some more conversations.
thanks.
Everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye.